I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered. And if you're one of those people out there that are kind of wondering, how do I get healthier? And maybe my doctor isn't really giving me all the solutions that I absolutely need. Maybe because he's so specialized in one particular area. What about all these other areas that I need to address? Am I going to have to go to every single doctor, every single specialty to get my answers? And the answer is no. Because in today's world, with all the emerging technologies out there and some of the most incredible geniuses, and you're going to meet one of them today, two of them actually, that have come up with these solutions for us. But here's the problem. With so much information on the internet, there's information overload, and it's really hard, even for myself. I'm a medical doctor. I've been in this business for almost 40 years. I get confused. I can't imagine what happens to you. And so, as I don't know you personally, I do know the personal problems that many people suffer and the challenges they have to get the right solutions. Because some of this stuff is not exactly inexpensive either. So how do you know what to do? And so I've got an answer for that. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some very fun and entertaining and engaging role play, where we're going to start off with Dr. Morgan. He's going to present with some problems that you might very well relate to. These are not necessarily problems that are his to have experience, but it might be, it might not be. It's more about you being able to relate to these kinds of conditions, or maybe you know somebody that has had these problems before. And then Rowena is going to guide him through a process by which he can get some sort of resolution. And if this resonates with you, then I encourage you to connect with them, because they're both amazing human beings. They're beacons of light for all of us to follow, because what I do, my purpose is to create different people and different products so that I can help you make the best decisions for yourself. But ultimately, you're the one that has to make that decision. So with the role playing, we're going to do that for about 6 minutes. I'm going to have them both first introduce themselves, where they come from, what they do. And then they're going to share with us what kind of problem, what kind of role they're going to play. And then for 6 minutes, we'll do the role playing, and then we're going to unpack that, because my goal is for you to leave with some insights and some specific action steps that you can take, so that you can then begin to optimize your health. Because as we talked on a previous episode with both of these individuals, is that sickness or illness, that's a choice. We no longer have an excuse to be sick. The problem is, how do you resolve, and what kind of strategies or treatments can you implement to have the optimum health? And that's why we have this podcast. So Rowena and Dr. Morgan, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to start with Dr. Morgan, who a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do, and your magic that you offer all your patients. And then we'll go with Rowena and the magic of her company.
Thanks, Bart. Yeah, my name is Morgan Camp. I'm an MD. I've trained in family practice and have worked in integrative functional medicine for the last 15 to 20 years, starting in residency. I specialize in everything from bioidentical hormones to GI health, allergies, autoimmunity. My main focus is longevity now, working with senolytics and peptides, and I do a lot of work preventing and reversing chronic illness as well. I do love working with people who agree with Bart that sickness is a choice, and they just need to have the right tools and the right people and the right technology to overcome that. So yeah, thank you, Bart.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Rowena.
Hi, I'm Rowena Gates, and I'm at a company called Eng3, and we have a device called the NanoV. And I have a long experience with chronic illness from this company. The device has been around about a dozen years, and more than half the company's life was with chronic illness, where that was really the focus. And then in the later years, we've shifted over to performance and longevity and wellness, healthy aging, and so on. And so, but the first part of our time in business was people that were really pretty ill and looking for solutions, innovative solutions, because this device is unlike anything else out there.
And we'll dive a little bit more into what that device is, but I'll tease the listener right now. My focus has always been how to harness the potential of the body to restore form and function, without drugs, without surgery. And this device will certainly do that. No chemicals, and just finding a way to optimize how your cells can actually function. So super exciting to hear more from you. So Morgan, what role are you playing? And then we'll get started.
Yeah, I'll be a patient who's undergoing some treatments and through those treatments having fatigue and brain fog, similar to like a detox reaction from a candida treatment or treatment for Lyme or mold or something like that. Yeah.
Great. And Rowena, what role are you going to be playing today?
Okay, I'm not the medical practitioner, right? I'm going to, Morgan will be like another person who calls in and says they've got these issues, what do you think? And will the device, our device, the NanoV device, how might that be helpful? Why would it be helpful is the real question.
And just, as a disclaimer, which is also in the front and the end of my podcast, is that we're not giving any medical advice. We're not making any specific medical claims. Once again, it's in everybody's own interest and the need to implement their own accountability and responsibility for any decisions that they make based on this. And this is a really important part in all of this, because as we talked earlier, everybody is unique. They have unique presentations, and then you need unique solutions for all of that. But let's get started. Morgan, you're on first.
Yeah, so I've had more fatigue, brain fog after making diet changes, after starting some treatments, for candida. And how might the NanoV help? Any other advice, or is you think it's a good choice? Is there potential side effects using it?
There are no actual side effects, but there are issues to be considered. And when you're going through any of that stress on your body, you have a high need for energy production. You need to support the challenge of if you're detoxifying candida or something else. And so there can be the need for energy production, and there's more than likely, for most of us even, there's issues with inflammation. And so that if you have inflammatory issues, those two areas are really, really good areas to address by improving the way your proteins are functioning, which is what the NanoV device does. But that the inflammation and that repair is a protein function, and all of the support that you need for the detox process. So, and the detox process itself, all of those are protein activities. And so while we don't treat something specifically like a disease, the device will support the whole system to manage it and work through it, and work through a process which can be pretty challenging at times. And then you asked if there's a downside, and there's no contraindication. However, you don't want to do certain things too quickly, because it can be a Herx reaction in the body. It can make you feel unwell. And that we find is especially true with people with chronic Lyme disease and some of these issues where they're not detoxifying well. Their system's just too challenged. And for those people, they have to start with small amounts of use and then build up, because it can cause, it's a cellular detox. It's really getting the toxins out of the body, not just the organs, but at a cellular level, which is great, but you don't want to overload the elimination channels. And that's what happens when people feel unwell.
Perfect. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, I've had inflammation, had pain off and on. So it sounds like the NanoV could help with that, healing the inflammatory process. Okay. How about helping with energy levels through the process for me?
The mitochondrial function is a really big, and it's a noticeable thing for us. We study healthy people typically, but in athletes, for example, if they have more energy, that's a noticeable, measurable more energy. And so in supporting the system the way we do, which is just by influencing the environment for the mitochondria and all the other cell components, which is water, it will support them to do their jobs better. And increased energy is really common amongst healthy people, and especially amongst people that are ill.
Okay, beautiful.
Well, I think we're good. I think we're at a point where I think we get a lot of great information here, because here's the one thing, two things that I think a lot of people out there just don't understand, and I would love both your input. And I'll start with Dr. Morgan and then Rowena. Inflammation and mitochondria dysfunction, and a lot of people don't really quite understand what the mitochondria are, but these are the energy centers in our cells. And interesting enough, as we've evolved over millennia, whatever you want to believe, these mitochondria were actually bacteria that kind of somehow created this symbiotic relationship with our predecessor human cells, however you want to put it, and now become an integral part. And when those mitochondria are not functioning well, then we have a major problem. And most chronic diseases today have something to do with inflammation. So share with the listener, Dr. Morgan, some thoughts about mitochondria inflammation, some of the things that you've noticed over time that people are absolutely missing, including our colleagues out there, and no fault against them. Again, I mean, you were motivated in a certain way to learn certain things. A lot of us, were put into this certain trajectory. We stuck with that trajectory because we were told to stay with that trajectory. But now times are changing and people are looking outside rather than within their own specialty to help people. And that's why we have this podcast. But again, some of your thoughts about inflammation, mitochondria, or anything else you want to share.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I've only in the last few years started working more with mitochondrial dysfunction. And as we age, we lose quantity of mitochondria, but also quality of mitochondria. And so, part of in the more chronic illness, the more inflammation, the more toxins that a person has, then the more that is pronounced, meaning less mitochondria and less high functioning mitochondria. And, so you got somebody who's very high energy, they can think clearly, they can exercise clearly. I've got patients like that. Their mitochondria are working great. So for them, it's all about fine tuning. How can I feed the mitochondria well? And for other people, I do more of a process like pruning mitochondria, like trying to stop feeding those low quality ones, hoping to induce mitophagy, it's called, the cellular repair and even the killing process of the mitochondria, so that they can the old ones, we can kill those through a lot of senolytic treatment. So I prune out the bad mitochondria and then try to help regrow new ones. So it's like a gardening analogy that I use. And through that process, I see people, they have improved memory, focus, energy, concentration, endurance, performance, etc. So all that everybody's looking for. Yeah, and there's no single one thing. I use a lot of peptides for this, and I use a lot of different senolytics for this. I use a lot of non-FDA approved treatments for this, and some FDA approved treatments for this. Yeah.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that there's like one peptide, for example, that actually our thymus gland produces naturally, and we can't even get it from the FDA. And so I just want to ensure that the listeners understand the distinction between things that are not FDA approved. And again, no criticism of the FDA. They're trying to do their best to ensure that nobody does get sick or that there are bad actors out there, because there always are. But then again, it's the finding the right doctors, like Dr. Morgan Camp, who understands the potential of different peptides as well. And I kind of liken it, and this is probably not the best metaphor, but when we have mitochondria that are not functioning well, they have to be removed, because otherwise it's going to affect the overall function of the cell. And sort of like you use the word plucking, and I'm thinking, well, if somebody is getting gray hairs, and all you do is you pluck out those gray hairs, and now you got a great looking hair. So I don't know if that's a great metaphor, but the point of the matter is that there are very intelligent pathways to optimize health. And certainly I can already tell, and I just met Dr. Morgan today, that he clearly has a great grasp of all the possibilities, or many of the possibilities out there, that will significantly make a difference, because cognitive decline certainly is reversible. So Rowena, tell us a little bit about, your thoughts and experiences with mitochondrial dysfunction and improving it, and perhaps explain a little bit about how the NanoV actually does work.
Yeah, well, basically, it's going to make what Morgan's doing work better. And so do his stuff and then have it work better, because the peptides are just small proteins, right? They're from 2 to maybe 50 amino acids. They're just small. They're still proteins. They still have to fold and do all the same things. And so by just improving that environment for them to do that activity, it's going to work better. And that's the same with autophagy, or the getting the sentient cells and mitochondria out of the system. That's all going to just work a little bit better through supporting a better environment. And so it's the mitochondria is an interesting one. We see a lot. It's easy for people to see that they burn more of the oxygen that's in the air. And so if someone's low, they will go up as if you put them on concentrated oxygen, but it's just because they're utilizing it better. And so it's sort of utilizing the fuel better in the system, is easily measurable. And that's just helping them function better. So it's interesting because the proteins are known to get their energy for folding from the water. And that's been a long time that they've recognized that. Many years they've known that, or decades. And there's some assumptions that the mitochondria is the same way, that there's an energy state in the water that the mitochondria relies on. That part is not evolved, isn't as evolved in that definitive answer, but it looks like the water does play a role for the mitochondrial function as well.
Well, let me share this with you, is that water is a great conductor of energy, and energy is just another form of information. And what we are beginning to understand, in fact, within the scientific field, it's been known for many years, for the last century for sure, but in the medical field, not so much, is that all these different energy systems within the body are transferring information at a very high speed, even at the speed of light. And so our bodies, our cells, are not just responding to nerve impulses or hormones, but also energy impulses, that some of which we probably can't even measure yet. And so water is an incredibly important component to that efficacy of communication. So therefore, all those listening out there, if you're part of, I think, the 80% of the population that's dehydrated, better start drinking more water, because it's going to make a difference in how you function overall. And again, as we talked about last time, if the molecules are folded and they're flat, they can't work properly. And this is what the NanoV does. It opens up the molecules so that they can interact with each other, because each molecule is also a transmitter of energy. And depending on the molecular configuration in 3 dimensions, it's going to make a huge difference. Mm-hmm. So I love what you shared, Rowena. I'm going to give you the last word on that particular topic, and then share with us, how do people get a hold of you, who's your company, and that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, I would add there that when you said the molecule can actually go and be one protein or a different protein, and that's where we get to the epigenetics, where if what's happening, is it working well or not, and that's where your lifestyle choices and all these other factors are very much in our control. And the part that's just pure DNA, that's not the whole story at all. And so just making everything work better, and not having those molecules misfold or stick together and so on, that's an important path. And we do have a lot of control in the epigenetic side of things. So,
and just for the listener out there, if you are not familiar with the word epigenetics, you've got the DNA, which a lot of people thought was, the cause of everything, but it's really the proteins and the molecules around the DNA that determine what part of the DNA is being expressed or not, and therefore ultimately how the body functions. So, what's more important than just the DNA, because that's just the blueprint, but you need all the other factors to actually express that DNA for a body to function well. So thank you for that share. So what
Yeah.
is your company and how do people find you?
The company is called ENG3, ENG3, .com will get you there. And there's the contact information on the contact page. You're more than welcome to call in there. And we do send out study results and information that could be helpful if you want to take a look at it. The products are called the NanoV device. And there's 3 different sizes of the power levels of the product, and they're really used for performance, for healthy aging and longevity, and for addressing chronic illness if people are trying to reclaim their health.
And then specifically, it's the inhalation of what?
It's ordered water is what you're inhaling, and it's going through the water in your system. And so it's biophysics, not biochemistry.
And then again, it's because the way the patented technology, what it does, it actually opens up your molecules so that they function better. I think it's absolutely a brilliant idea. Whoever came up with it, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I love it for the fact that it's not utilizing chemicals, and it's really tapping into the natural potential of our body to optimize itself. And so there's really no side effects in that way. So
Yeah, and
go ahead.
where it came from is we mimicked what the body does. It energizes the water and the cells in a certain way with a specific wavelength. And we did it artificially and delivered it. And so it's really feeding it at a very basic level for the body.
And just in context as well, which is something that I always like to share, is that we've evolved over millions of years in harmony with nature. And what's very unnatural is the lifestyle and the environment that we live in today. I mean, there's a complete toxic overload. And so our body doesn't have the capacity to deal with all of those attacks on us. And so that's why these kinds of technologies that are naturally based will make a huge impact on all of us. And as we've always been talking about, it's something that you stack up. And so like Dr. Morgan will probably use different types of peptides or different types of approaches. You stack it up, as Rowena was saying, with the NanoV, so to basically enhancing the effectiveness of all these different products. So I love that fact. And again, most people will try to find something on the internet. They find one solution, but one solution will never do it. Dr. Morgan, again, where are you from? How do people get a hold of you? And any last words that you'd like to share?
Great. Yeah. So Morgan Camp, MD. I'm at drmorgancamp.com. I'm currently living in Sedona, Arizona, practicing here. I have a license in California and Arizona. I've been in California for the last 2 decades before I had an exodus for many reasons recently, as I'm sure many of your listeners did as well. I do a lot of work with longevity, chronic disease prevention, reversal, bioidentical hormones, etc. I like the NanoV also because it's bioidentical signaling is what the device is doing. I use bioidentical hormones. I use bioidentical peptides. I believe in nature. I'm a chemist by trade, but I don't believe that anything that we're chemically modifying is likely better than Earth created without our modification in many, many cases. So yeah, that's my premise and how I do a lot of work. It's very natural based practice and again, using bioidentical treatments as much as possible.
Great. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both for a very enlightening conversation about what we can do. And just to recap, there are devices like the ENG3 that can enhance the effectiveness of the proteins that you have. And it's a matter of stacking and finding individuals like Dr. Morgan Camp, who is addressing all of you in a lot of different ways in the most natural way possible. And I think ultimately that's the best. And that certainly is going to serve longevity, because nowadays in the last 10 years, there's been an explosion of information. It's super exciting times for us all now today. Just thinking of the microbiome, the inflammation, the epigenetics, and then of course the mitochondria, and then so much more that we know so much more nowadays. And finding the right people like Dr. Morgan Camp is really the solution that you want to have. We need to duplicate and replicate you as many times as possible, Morgan.
Thank you, Bart. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone once again. My name is Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered. And once again, it's helping you relate to the actual situation that you might find yourself in, or somebody that you care about, and help them and guide them towards better resolution by helping them think through the process by which they make the best decisions for themselves. And ultimately, it's your responsibility. The information is out there, but find the right guide, find the right people that will support that process by which you can make the best health decisions and find the ability to thrive and find the abundance that you desire. Once again, I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and we will be back